Good morning, my lovely grandchildren, Luke, Jackie, Joy, Redden, and Rue. I'm going to do our short little devotion this morning, and then I'm going to read chapter 2 in the Goblin and the Princess book, Princess and the Goblin book. And I won't be as funny as Granddaddy, and my video won't be as fancy as his. But anyway, we're going to talk this morning about why I feel bad when I do something wrong. And this is out of the Bible Answer book. Why do I feel bad when I do something wrong? You might know that you filled a bathtub with water that's too hot to climb in, but it's the way you feel that makes you jump out before you get burned any worse. Well, in the same way, God planned for you to think about the way you feel when you've done something wrong. Doing wrong usually makes you feel far from God and from the people you hurt. Those sad feelings are a powerful message that you have done something that needs to be fixed. It's one way God helps you to know that you need to admit your sin to Him and do whatever you can to fix what you did wrong. And so that is the key. You admit your sin to Him. God, I sinned, and ask for His forgiveness, and He always forgives, the Word says. And then do whatever you can, if you can do anything, to fix what you did wrong. And our scripture for today is Psalm 32, 2 and 3. What joy for those whose record the Lord has cleared of sin, whose lives are lived in complete honesty. When I refused to confess my sin, I was weak and miserable, and I groaned all day long. Okay, now I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of what Granddaddy read yesterday in The Princess and the Goblin, so that you can remember and then be interested in today's story. So we read about a little princess named Irene. Excuse me. She's adopted by another set of parents, and she never gets to go outside at night because of goblins under the mountain. The goblins come out at night, and the goblins moved underground sometime before this, and they became very ugly and very mean, especially to the people who live above ground. Now, Irene was having a pity party one day when it was raining, and she decided to escape up a secret staircase that she found. She found an old but beautiful woman at a spinning wheel at the top of the staircase. The woman's name was also Irene, and she told Irene that she was her great-great-grandmother, and she showed her finally the way back down the staircase. Now I'm going to start chapter 2. And by the way, I don't know if Granddaddy showed you I know he's got the cover of the book, but this picture was a really lovely picture. Well, I can't find it now, so I'm not going to worry about it. There it is. There's the little princess and her great-great-grandmother at the top of the staircase. So, the little princess is talking to her nurse when she comes back down the staircase. And the nurse says, where can you have been, princess? Asked the nurse, taking Irene in her arms. It's very unkind of you to hide away so long. I began to be afraid. Here she stopped herself. What were you afraid of, nursie? Asked the princess. Never mind, she answered. Perhaps I'll tell you another day. Now tell me where you have been. I've been up a long way to see my very great, huge old grandmother. What do you mean by that? Asked the nurse, who thought she was making fun. I mean that I've been a long way up and up and up to see my great-grandmother. Oh, nursie, you don't know what a beautiful mother of grandmothers I've got upstairs. She's such an old lady with such lovely white hair, as white as my silver cup is. Now, when I think of it, I think her hair must be silver. What nonsense you are talking, princess. I'm not talking nonsense, returned Irene, rather offended. I will tell you all about her. She's a lot taller than you are, and she's very much prettier than you. Oh, I dare say, remarked the nurse. And she lives on pigeon eggs. Most likely, said the nurse. And she sits in an empty room all day, spinning. Not a doubt of it, said the nurse. And she's been there ever since I came here, ever so many years since I came to live here. Oh, anybody could have told you that, said the nurse, who didn't believe a word Irene was saying. You don't believe me then, exclaimed the princess, astonished and angry as she well might be. Well, did you really expect me to believe you, princess? Asked the nurse coldly. I know princesses are in the habit of telling make-believes, but you're the first I ever heard of who expected to have them believed, she added, seeing that the child was strangely in earnest. The princess burst into tears. But it's quite true, I tell you. Then you've dreamt it, child. No, I didn't dream it. I went upstairs and I got lost, and if I hadn't found the beautiful lady, I would never have found myself again. Please come up with me and see if I'm not telling the truth. Nurse said, Indeed, I have other work to do. It's your dinner time, and I won't have any more such nonsense. The princess wiped her eyes, and her face grew so hot that her tears were soon quite dry. She sat down to her dinner, but ate next to nothing. Not to be believed does not at all agree with princesses, for a real princess cannot tell a lie. So all that afternoon she did not speak a word. Of course, the nurse was not comfortable in her mind. She loved the princess dearly, and she was vexed with herself for having been cross to her, as it became more and more plain by Irene's every motion and look during the evening that her heart was too vexed and too troubled to enjoy her toys. Her nurse's discomfort grew and grew. When bedtime came, the child, instead of holding up her little mouth to be kissed, she turned away from her and lay still. Then Nursie's heart gave way altogether, and she began to cry. At the sound of her first sob, the princess turned back again and held her face to kiss her as usual. But the nurse had her handkerchief to her eyes, and she didn't see her moving. Nursie, said the princess, why won't you believe me? Because I can't believe you, said the nurse, getting angry again. Oh, then you can't help it, Ludi. That was Irene's pet name for her nurse. And I will not be vexed with you any more. I will give you a kiss and go to sleep. You little angel, cried the nurse, and caught her out of bed and walked about the room with her in her arms, kissing and hugging her. You will let me take you to see my dear old great big grandmother, won't you? Said the princess as she laid her down again. And you won't say I'm ugly anymore, will you, princess? Nursie, I never said you were ugly. What can you mean? You said I wasn't so pretty as that. As my beautiful grandmother. Yes, I did say that, for it's quite true. Then I do think you are unkind, said the nurse, and put her handkerchief to her eyes again. Nursie, dear, you are very nice looking, but if you had been as beautiful as my grandmother, some king or other would have married you, and then what would have become of me? Oh, you're such an angel, said the nurse, again embracing her. Now, insisted Irene, you will come and see my grandmother, won't you? I will go with you anywhere you like, my little cherub, she answered, and in 2 minutes the weary little princess was fast asleep. When the princess woke up the next morning, she heard the rain still falling. Indeed, this day was so like the last that it would have been difficult to tell what was the use of this day. The first thing she thought of was the lady in the tower, and the first question that occupied her thoughts was whether she should ask the nurse to fulfill her promise this very morning. But she came to the conclusion that perhaps the lady would not be pleased if she took anyone to see her without first asking her, especially as it was pretty evident, seeing she lived on pigeon eggs and cooked them herself, that she didn't want the household to know that she was there. So the princess resolved to take the first opportunity to run up alone and ask if she might bring her nurse. The princess and her nurse were the best of friends all during dressing time, and the princess in consequence ate a huge breakfast before she went to play. Now the nurse could not be every moment in the room, and because before yesterday the princess had never given her the smallest reason for anxiety, it had not yet come into Ludi's head to watch her more closely. So the nurse soon gave her a chance to escape, and Irene was off and up the stairs again. This day's adventure, however, did not turn out like yesterday's. The princess ran through passage after passage after passage, but she could not find the stair of the tower. When she turned to go back, she failed equally in her search after the stair to go back, and she was lost once again. It was no wonder that she started crying again. Suddenly it occurred to her that it was after having cried before that she had found her grandmother's stair. She got up at once, wiped her eyes, and started upon a fresh quest. This time, although she did not come on a stair that went up, she came upon one that went down. So down she went, and to her surprise she found herself in the kitchen. Although she was not allowed to go there by herself, her nurse had often taken her to the kitchen, and she was a great favorite with the servants. So there was a general rush at her the moment she appeared, for everyone wanted to have her, and the report of where she was soon reached the nurse's ears. The nurse came at once to fetch her, but she never suspected how the princess had gotten there. Irene's failure to find the old lady not only disappointed her, but made her very thoughtful. Sometimes she came almost to the nurse's opinion that she had dreamed all about her. She wondered much whether she should ever see her again, and thought it very sad not to have been able to find her. She resolved to say nothing more to her nurse on the subject, seeing it was so little in her power to prove her words. And that ends our reading for today. I love you guys, and we'll read chapter 3 tomorrow.